Hi all, welcome to another Kingscrusher radio show. This week I thought we could look at some interesting games from Magnus Carlsen's Simul. It was a 70 board Simul he played in Hamburg. So very interesting. I think he did very well in the Simul, as you might expect. It took 6 hours and he had a massive plus score. Oh, put a mute there. Okay, so let's have a look at the first game. So well, I'm not having a look at all 70, just actually 3 selected games. The first game I'd like to have a look at is against Jana Snyder, who's 2-1-1-2, so a feeder rate player. Magnus playing white. Normally in the Simul giver is playing white on all boards. So knight f3 for Magnus Carlsen. There's Anna Kibitzer as well. We have d5, c4. Black is prompted to try and prompting black to try this, but black plays e6, supporting her center. g3. I'll just connect to live book as well. Knight f6, bishop g2, bishop e7, white castles. So this is not an ultra sharp position, but I think as a Simul giver, especially over a large number of boards, I'm not sure you really want the positions to be too tactical. You want to try and keep the positions more on a positional basis, I would imagine, if you're giving a big Simul. In fact, I have played a big Simul against juniors once years ago, and it's very exhausting as well, physically and mentally, because physically even just getting around. So but yeah, let's see what happens. Castles, d4, knight bd7. We have queen c2, and usually apparently c6 is the most popular move in this position. So we're in closed Catalan territory here. In the game, knight e4, which does seem to set up a target. Let's have a quick look before we go into knight e4. Let's have a look at c6. So this is a kind of standard continuation where it's thought to be about equal actually, but yeah, the opponent didn't want to go in for that, or maybe didn't know the main move is c6. But whatever reason, this is quite a rare move now. Knight e4 was played, and Magnus just challenges the knight immediately, and yeah, it's a bit dangerous for black already, I think. If black tries something like f5, then c takes, and this is dangerous for black because actually this position is interesting. White's actually got this move with a big advantage. I don't want to lose you though, but so basically f5 looks unplayable technically. So black plays knight takes c3. So John Snyder seems to have lost tempo in a way just with this maneuver, lost a bit of tempo, and white doesn't even have to have double pawns. Doesn't want double pawns. Queen takes c3. Okay, knight f6. Bishop f4 was played, and okay, this position, it looks as though c7 might be a problem. At the moment it's not really, because the knight can always protect and hit everything. So actually, is white actually threatening anything here? Not really. But anyway, c6 is played. Rook ac1. There's a nice dark square grip at the moment, and yeah, black plays very aggressively. Knight e4, queen b3. I'm perhaps wondering what to do about this c8 bishop. Maybe there's some frustration here. Is it easy to solve the c8 bishop issue? Black plays very aggressively now, but it seems, yeah, it's uncomfortable. I would say this. It looks uncomfortable anyway. If b6, for example, I mean 95. This is looking kind of uncomfortable. This position, either c5 or maybe c takes. That bishop looks a bit dead. So anyway, black played aggressively here with g5. The thing is, yeah, there is a certain vacuum of weaknesses being created by g5. It's committal, it's aggressive, but pawns don't go backwards. I've lost so many games on this basic idea that if you want to be an attacking player, but you use pawns a lot, then you have to note it could easily backfire later if these weaknesses, that moving pawns, they create weaknesses. At the moment, it seems a long way off from white ever exploiting like these weaknesses here after g5. Maybe you know, it looks a little bit tempting. It's threatening the world champion. It's a threat, but not all threats are good. It's a committal threat. So the bishop just drops back here, and black carries on super aggressively with f5. And you might think, oh, hang on, doesn't this just look like a Dutch defense stone wall formation? Haven't we just transposed into what looks like a stone wall? Maybe, but yeah, to be fair, maybe. I mean, but it seems as though white is a little bit better here. So 95 just purchasing the knight there, and not even really worrying if black ever like challenge the knight and take it, maybe, because getting this position and getting rid of this bishop, then these dark square weaknesses could be a problem. But black doesn't even challenge it immediately with bishop f6. Black actually played queen e8, and the knight is actually reinforced with f4 and also attacking g5 now. Okay, so very aggressive from black, and some credit to be given for that, but it's very, very committal, this kind of stuff. Very committal. If black tries to lock down the king side, and let's have a look here, there's a forcing move. We can do this as white, and maybe even try and break through with d5 soon in the center. Maybe it doesn't matter about losing this bishop here because this is so dead. But anyway, black didn't do g4. Black played h6. Now Magnus took on d5. And in fact here, this is like a very useful piece for black. It's snapped off in this position. And yeah, okay, you might think, well, these weaknesses, but how is this bishop ever gonna see these weaknesses? It's a long way off. It's impossible. Unless it like wriggles around somehow. It seems very impossible for these light square weaknesses to be a problem later. And in return, not only getting rid of that piece now, but now f takes g5, exposing a lack of connection of black's pieces, swapping off maybe a key defender on f8. So hg, rook takes f8, and it's difficult. White's getting this f file quite quickly, and this knight is really good for supporting the rook maybe to f7 later. We have queen takes f8 here, because if bishop takes, then this drops for a start without much compensation, because if here there's queen e3 defending. So basically, yeah, black played queen takes, which gives a tempo, very important attacking tempo. So white's got a fast attack emerging here. But here is a very nice key move from white, from Magnus Carlsen. Very nice key move in this position, because there's queens over here, and it seems like, how does the queen help these pieces? But there's a nice move, and you see the queen, you really want the queen in charge, involved in the attack if there's going to be an attack over here. On b3 it's not doing that much because there's a dead bishop on c8 anyway. I mean, well, it's protecting b7 anyway, but it's a great looking move. Not necessarily engine improved. Remember, it was a Simul, so it's not Magnus Carlsen at full strength. I think it is a very good move. So what would you play here with white? If I give you 20 seconds, white to play here. How can you switch the queen in for the attack later? So you want this queen somehow to be involved in the attack? Any ideas? What would you play in this position. On play chess, please move away from the notation tab so we can have these guess the move quizzes more effectively without you looking at the score sheet. So it's an interesting move played here. Anyone got any ideas? How can you get the queen involved? What move would you play as white? You want to get the queen involved? Any ways of doing that? Okay, I'm going to have to show you, and maybe you can say after. Okay, bishop c1's mentioned. It wasn't bishop c1 or bishop d2. It's actually the queen. I'll give you a clue. Might be using the third rank if you want to shout a move based on that. How can the queen use the third rank here? There's this and this in the way, but we can solve that problem. g4. Yeah, it clears the third rank. The pawn is actually protected by the knight in any case here. And you might think, well, hold on. Black played rook b8 here. If black tries to challenge the knight, in this position we would have stronger than bishop takes g5. That's quite dangerous. Knight f7 apparently. And then, you know, that's really quite annoying. So yeah, black played rook b8. And the bishop gets out of the way. The third rank is being cleared for the queen. Bishop e6. We have queen h3. And now, yeah, black might be starting to regret, you know, this vacuum of weaknesses. This vacuum from those aggressive pawn moves, which were good at the time, but pawns just don't go backwards, and it's a fundamental thing about chess. The other pieces have great versatility, all of them, except for the pawns. So when you use the pawn structure, based on that fact, a lot of people are less reckless with their pawns. Although, you know, looking at master games in my time, I've seen that the aggressive dynamic players are not so worried about aggressive pawn moves, because they can often make the tactical resources work to the maximum when they take risks with pawn structure and try and attack the opponent. Usually, you know, they're really good tacticians to back that up. But here it seems as though black has just created a vacuum, and at the moment it's not entirely obvious how this vacuum of weaknesses is proving fatal just yet, although there's an invasion point here threatened queen h6, which would put more pressure on g5, right, and hit this one. So black parries that threat. She parries that threat with king g7. And now this does seem to be incredibly an accurate move, which the engine really likes as well. Magnus Carlsen's next move here, bearing in mind this is a simul, I actually find this quite fascinating. And this move order, this whole move order is fascinating. This is really fascinating because it seems as though the h6 issue has been dealt with, right? The king has parried h6. But there's a way of trying to get pressure on h6. But it's pretty subtle stuff actually. How does white get pressure on h6 here? There's a really nice move as a prelude to try and break down not just h6, well, the diagonal. What would you play here if you wanted to break down this diagonal? I'll give you 20 seconds here. White to play a small little move. That's a clue. A little move which prepares to break down this diagonal to make h6 an issue coming up. What would you play here with white? So white's play, I'll give you 20 seconds again. So guess some moves, or try and work out how do you get an attack from this position? Because in a way, isn't black holding the fort here? f7 is covered, that entry point f6 is covered. Isn't black holding the fort? What does white play here? An attacking move, and it is a good one. It seems as though the engine really likes it as well. It's incredible, you know, Magnus plays based on intuition compared to engines, but it's an incredible move. of great power. Alright, some of you are mentioning it, and I hope you've seen the idea behind it. Okay, Queen G3. And you might wonder, why didn't the Queen just go to G3 from the outset? That's another question. Why didn't the Queen go to G3? And what is it actually doing here? Well, it makes the way for the H pawn to batter down the G5 pawn, because we want this diagonal. Now you might think, well, why didn't the Queen in this position like go here? Well, this is a good position for it anyway. But this is actually, I think this is actually you know, more accurate. It's in a way, it's like committing King G7 to make H6 a bit more sensitive. So you know, this is an accurate move. It seems Queen H3, and in fact the engine likes Queen H3 here. So this actual move order, bring the king to defend H6, and now get ready to go on that diagonal, to break down that diagonal. So we have here the king moving in this position there. Now H4, and note that in this position all it needs for white is also this kind of thing and on the H file. But for the moment black is winning a pawn with G takes H4, and we have Queen E3. So this battery now exposes H6 immediately, has to be defended. Black plays bishop F8, but there's a weakness of the last move creeping in with bishop F8. But can black actually hold the fort here? This is very precarious in this position. Black cannot control all of these squares at the same time. There's only one way, it seems, of defending H6, which is bishop F8. The queen can't go there because we've got that covered, right? So this weakness of the last move just neglected G5. Magnus, of course, pounces on G5, and he's going to win his pawn and open up this H file, and then of course all we need is something like this, and it's end of game. So we have bishop G7, queen takes H4 check, and here actually you might think, well, king G2 as mentioned might be dangerous, but I think even better is this move that was actually played, bishop H6. Let's have a quick look. King G2 is good, but maybe black is not completely crushed immediately in these kind of positions, because there's a bit of counter attack here as well. But it's still losing for black, even that King G2 here. But anyway, bishop H6 is stronger, because now if bishop takes E5, there's Queen G5 check, and then the option to actually take here is crushing. This would be crushing, for example, here. This is end of game for black. This sort of position. That's getting mowed down. Had to give up the queen. So this is technically stronger, bishop H6, cutting across the key dark square. So now that H6 has been exposed, it's also all of these dark squares that are in danger to get to black's king. So black plays Queen D8, challenging the queen. Queen H5 creeping in there. Again, a kind of weakness of the last move. The queen was controlling H5. We just pounce on H5 now because that was neglected. Bishop takes E5. Of course, black is in serious trouble now on the dark squares. Queen takes E5, threatening mate in one. Queen D7, which unfortunately neglects the rook. Yeah, the rook just dropped off. Oops. And then now it's a difficult position though. How does black actually defend the rook and G7? It's actually impossible. This is actually a losing position. If you can find the defense here, it'll be ingenious, because actually it's, according to the engine, this is a forced mate in 19 actually, this position at least. You've got to defend G7, but you can't do that here because of the B8. Yeah, it's a classic double attack on both sides of the board actually. So it's end of game. Yeah, black drops the rook. Queen F8, it's end of game. It's the last little try for perpetual check is parried with King G2 and also Rook H1 introduced. But white is a rook up, so that's the end of that on move 34. So yeah, Magnus Carlsen really kind of crushed a FIDE rated player over 2100 in the Simul in this game, which is quite impressive, because actually, you know, there's a certain amount of artistic precision which is incredible. 70 board Simul. The physical, demands of the Simul are also quite high, as well as the mental strain. You'd think, just physically walking to all of those boards, and this is a 6 hour. Lasted 6 hours. So I'll show you another game from the Simul. That was quite a sweet game, wasn't it? In my opinion, that was quite a sweet game. Anyway, it was featured in a chess-based news article. I stripped out, by the way, all the annotations that had been made to the game before commenting. I don't want to use anyone else's comments, by the way. I just got the raw PGNs here for this presentation. But yeah, there's a great chess-based news article about the event. So this is another game from the Simul against a 1933. So the question, did Magnus, you'll have to wait until it's in the news article. I'll give the news article link. So let's have a look at this game. This is against Anne-Marie Mush, that I can't pronounce. I imagine it looks like mush to me. Okay, was mush mashed basically? Let's answer that question. So Magnus Carlsen against Anne-Marie Mush. So was mush mashed? Knight f6, c4, e6. We have knight c3, b6. She's 1933 and quite a youngster in the Simul. To be fair, maybe a child prodigy. She's only like 13 years old, so don't be too harsh on black's play. So e4, d6. Yeah, Magnus is getting a space advantage. Queen e2 is already threatening things like e5 here. So he plays e5 now, yeah, gaining space in the centre. But it looks as though there might be a downside to this, the c5 square. But white reinforces e5. Magnus is not concerned about having double pawns, particularly in this position. Black blockades the double pawns. But still, overall, because of the space in the centre, it seems as though this is favourable for white, this position, although structurally it looks as though hasn't white been compromised structurally. It's not such a big deal in the wider context of the position. Queen c7, because white does have a kind of attacking free hand now on the king side, and h4 does seem like an aggressive move, clamping down and threatening to try and maybe break down the king side soon. There's not too many defensive pieces near the king here. Knight c6. Note that the double pawn is very useful here because they're controlling the key squares, so this isn't a threat. And white actually plays rook d6 now, which sometimes might be a liability to tactics like knight e5, but not here. It seems this is perfectly playable, this invasion here. Knight f8. And now h5, white's getting ready to try and weaken black's king. And here, h6, yeah, trying to weaken black on the dark squares. It would be very dangerous to play g6, as you might expect. White has all sorts of things here, like knight g5 is possible, with maybe coming in like this later. So black didn't want to play g6. Black played knight g6, which I think is the best move. And the engine actually has this position, to be fair, as only slightly advantageous. Or it's changing its mind a bit. It's varying a bit anyway. It's not entirely convinced that black is completely lost here. Should we put it like that? We have rook takes d8. No, sorry, not rook takes d8. We have queen e3 here. Bishop a6. Okay, attacking the pawn. This is not worried about his c4 pawn. H takes g7. He wants to try and get an attack. Bishop takes c4. Rook f d1. And white could actually try and control the d file with bishop g5 now. That would be interesting. Knight c e7. Bishop g5. But not only that. Now the knight pinning the knight. Bishop f6 looks dangerous as well. Queen c8. Now actually here maybe some of us would like to keep the bishop, and maybe put it on f6, but isn't them. Yeah, it seems. Well, Magnus actually gave up his bishop here. If he plays bishop f6, that is good as well. It's a good position for white, but he actually took on e7, which might actually be even stronger. So this is impossible because we just take on d8. So knight takes forced. Another point here that maybe knight f5 in the future, that's extinguished with g4. And this looks dangerous because queen h6 followed by knight g5 would seem as though black is unable to defend h7 as an example. Well, an important one actually, because that's the most logical way to attack. So knight d5, we have the queen going to h6. So with knight g5, and you think black should be finished here, right? Black's had it. No king safety. Black plays f6. And actually there is a technical move here which is a forced mate in 15 apparently. The engine picks up a forced mate in 15 in this position. Shall we have this as a technical exercise? Okay, who spots the mate in 15? Okay, I'll give you 20 seconds. Yeah, mate in 15 apparently. No, 14. Sorry, pardon me. It's now 14. The first move. You only have to guess the first move of the mate in 14, which was missed actually by Magnus. How could the world champion miss this? Mate in 14. So what's the first move that you'd play here? So you don't have to worry about the continuation, but what would be the first move? Nope, not ef6, not rook d5. No, the first move is actually to get this piece to influence h7. How is that possible? I'll give you a clue. You want this piece to influence this square. That's my clue. So I'm going to say that again. So another 20 seconds. So some of you might have a chance to fathom the engine move here. So I've given you a clue now, because none of you are showing the right first move. Alright, knight h4 is a bit slow, and maybe black can play, because the idea of bishop e4, right? But black can play this. If here, queen takes a bit slow. No, quicker, just play knight g5 immediately. So you vacated e4 for the bishop, right? So threatening mate immediately. And apparently f takes, for example. We have bishop e4. And it's a mate in 8 here. This is like mate in 8. Like this. Mate in 5. Either rook is both mate in 5. And we sort of mate like this, for example, as an example. Yeah. So knight g5 is absolutely crushing. But that's an engine move, right? Magnus plays rook. 1 takes d5. Bishop takes. E takes f6. So this is brilliant though. The rook is being sacrificed. This is brilliant in its own right, this conception. So black can't take the rook. This is also brilliant because knight g5 here threatens mate with that, and also that would squish the king as a checkmate. So this is a brilliant continuation by Magnus in any case. Yeah, rook takes d5 is pretty crushing as well. It's actually a forced mate as well, actually. Okay, so e takes f6. This is a forced mate in 18 apparently, or maybe even less. So black has had it here technically because of things like knight g5. So because of that, black tries bishop takes f3, but we have bishop takes f3, and again the bishop is coming to e4 here. So if rook takes d6, we still have this resource bishop e4 in this position. It's worth noting how deadly a fianchetto bishop can be on h7. This is a very interesting attacking resource pattern to put in the toolkit. So we have this position, which is impossible to defend apparently. It's a forced mate in 8. King f7. Now, if white takes on h7, well, white played even stronger. g5, just supporting this one first. No rush. Threatening check. And then bishop takes will be mate. So black has to parry that. e5 was played, giving the king a square. Now here, it is a forced mate in 4, apparently. This is apparently, this is a forced mate in 4. And what would you play here? So this is there's 2 ways to mate in 4. Yeah, no, there's 2 mates in 4s actually. So I'll give you 100 points if you can find the mate in 4, and 200 points if you can mention the other one as well. So mate in 4 now, much easier, yeah? White to play, which Magnus didn't play by the way. So mate in 4. Any ideas? Yeah, sometimes you can cause a crushing weakness to the last move. That's a clue. Yeah. When you're on the attack, and especially when the opponent's low on time, sometimes the opponent will break based on simply a weakness of the last move. And sometimes you can force that with drag and drop tactics, a weakness of the last move. Now here there is a kind of drag and drop tactic which wasn't played actually by Magnus. So he's not fallible, he's not a computer. Probably a computer from 1980 would find this mate in 4, probably. But you know, you know, it's not all about tactics. But there is a tactical mate in 4 here, trying to drag the rook away from e7. If that's the clue, we play g8. Either the queen or even a bishop promotion would do. If that was a bishop, it would still be forcing. So both count as a forced mate in 4, because it's, if the king takes, then we have this, and if the rook takes, e7 has been neglected, which can be pounced on here. Yeah, with queen takes h7. Then black can delay or just be mated, it doesn't matter. On e7, black gets mated on e7, neglecting e7. So that was the forced mate in 4. Yeah, either queening or queening under promoting to a bishop. But in the game, it's a crushing position anyway. g6 was played, and still white's winning, but it's not a mate in 4. We have king takes f6, g takes h7. Yeah, the pawns are pretty crushing, right? You might think, isn't there an issue with queen g4 check potentially in this position? Okay, is there an issue with queen g4 check? Black played actually king f7. Pardon me. Black played king f7. And even though this might seem as though that's interesting, well, it stops actually because white plays this under promotion with check. So the interesting thing here is if this was taken, then we can again get an under promotion with check, and I'm gonna have to show you that. I'm gonna have to change my thing to be able to under promote with check. Can I do that here? Oh no, I can't. Oh my god. Sorry about that. Okay, you just have to imagine it's another under promotion with check. So black never gets time for queen g4 check, right? So we have this position where the knight was actually left with king e7. So black might be threatening queen g4, which could be a nuisance, yeah? More than a nuisance. This is also this is threatened, but no, it's check here now. Rook f6. So that rook is pinned, and now we have knight g6 check. Okay, so the rook is protected by the king. If the king goes to f7, then there's bishop d5 check, which would be horrible, because if something like this, then white can actually play knight f8 and then threatening to queen. So anyway, the king went to e6, but here there is actually a mate in 5 now. In this position, there's actually a mate in 5 with similar ideas to before, if you remember. So mate in 5 test. So remember, sometimes the opponent can't cover all the squares. There's weaknesses in the last moves creeping in. So some trade-off between square coverage is being made by the opponent, which you can force. So how can you get a mate in 5 in this position? It's a drag and drop tactic, that's another clue. And it's very similar to what was previously mentioned. So mate in 5, what would you play here with white? By the way, I'm going to have to find my set. Well, I'm going to try and find my settings. Surely I can find in my settings how to do the unpromotion. Oh, I don't really want to do it now. I'm so tempted to see if I can find it in the settings for that variation. That winds me up. Leave that another time. Maybe it's actually. Okay, no, sorry. Okay. Anyway, there's a mate in 5 here, yeah. We do this drag and drop tactic again, g8, because we're forcing black to neglect e7. That's the key thing. So it's kind of forcing the opponent to have a weakness for the last move. The opponent cannot cover all the squares all the time with such tactics available. So e7 is neglected here. Black actually resigned in this position, but if rook takes, e7 neglected, queen takes e5 check, and then black again gets ironically mated on e7, the very move which the weakness of the last move generated, the drag and drop tactic, getting mated on e7. That didn't happen. Black just resigned after g8 check. It's something to bear in mind, these tactical ideas. I'm thinking, you know, when we look at games, you know, especially if you're an active player either online or offline, it's these forcing move tactics cause these gaps in square coverage defense. So g8 causing black to neglect e7, right? Okay, let's have a look at another game now. The third game I'd like to show you from the Simul. So that was quite a nice, sweet attacking game as well, I thought. Now this game against Jan-Erik Rudolph, he's a special guy in the world of chess. Let me just refer to the article just to recap. Hold on. Rudolph the name there. Rudolph. I think. Oh, I've forgotten the reference to him. Oh man. Anyway, he's one of the stronger players in Simul. Okay. And he was playing black, so he's a pretty decent player. He's 1981 actually FIDE rated, 1981. So he's not massively FIDE rated. Let's take it from his perspective. So he was black against Magnus Carlsen, c4. and he plays one of my favourite defences. He goes into a King's Indian defence, so we get a King's Indian defence by transposition. Well, not really technically King's Indian defence, actually. Sorry, it's a King's Indian structure. It's a King's Indian structure here. So a5. When you do this, you want like a knight coming to c5 there without any harassment. Bishop d3. So knight a6. Seems very logical. Now knight f6. So black does transpose into a very King's Indian style position. This could have come out of a King's Indian defense. Bishop g5 for Magnus, provoking some weaknesses. f3, which means the bishop can come later to f2 and support a c5 break later. Bishop drops back here. Queen e8. Now knight h7, making way for the f pawn. So typical King's Indian defense position. b3, this is a typical idea because if you play a3 first, then a4 clamps down on this because we can take on certain, and these are holding the a4 pawn in place. So b3 first though, so that you can play a3, and if a4 you can play b4 without any en passant. So that's a standard little trick. f5 and now a3, so that if a4 b4. So this knight's going to be dislodged, and it's given a square with b6, a nice retreat square. b4, knight b7, it uses that. Queen d2. We have f4, typical King's Indian style attack. Over here coming up, maybe. g5. Knight b5, threatening the pawn. And it looks like quite a controversial decision here, but probably necessary. Instead of defending the pawn, black played bishop takes b5, giving up what seems to be an important attacking piece potentially. If black plays rook c8, if black plays rook c8, it's a bit passive, but also white might in the future just play a knight to c6 maybe by a7. There's all sorts of nasties awaiting here, I think. If black tries to do anything, then you know this bishop might not even be that brilliant. This is nice for white. But anyway, the bishop was given up here. It looks as though it should be controversial, right? So it's taken. If white can clear the c file, then c7's a problem. So black has to attack quickly. Magnus Carlsen on the king side. Knight c3, g4. Without the light square bishop, he's still going ahead. What else anyway? Queen g6 supporting the pawn. We have knight f6 now. Bishop d1. Bishop h6, preparing maybe to use this diagonal. If black can open up these dark squares, that would be nice as well. Rook f7, which is a traditional way of defending c7 and also preparing to sort of use the rooks for the attack. So a very logical play from black and from white, ganging up on this backward pawn, which is not going anywhere. It's so fixed down with these two pawns. Queen f1, rook ag8. Black is logically building up on the king side against Magnus Carlsen. Bishop h4 and bishop g5. Bishop going back. Now an energetic g3 move, trying to open up this diagonal. Very good. Bishop e1. Magnus is sacking a pawn to try and stop black's attack and carry on the queen side. So knight a4, threatening rook takes c7. Knight e8 defends c7 a bit longer. Knight b2 with the idea potentially of knight c4 and putting more pressure on the structure now. A takes, h4. What's happening here with h4? When a King's Indian player does a move like h4, they're usually thinking about putting a knight in g3. And okay, knight d3, which looks as though the g4 square and holding h3 is useful. Bishop d8 frees up the knight, so the bishop is now holding c7, but frees up the knight to go here, right? king takes, rook h7, which vacates g7. The knight wants to go there. Or does it? No, it goes this way. Knight f6, because that knight g4 is stopped with this route instead of this route. If we'd gone this route, then I think knight g4 is possible, or knight h3 in fact. Okay, so this route might be better, knight f6, but still knight h3 is good here as well, and it's played. Knight h5, the knight is still wanting to go in there. Okay, one, knight g3. But what is black actually doing with this position? Not much at the moment. White seems to be infiltrating quite nicely, and Magnus is winning this pawn now after this move. He's winning c7. Isn't that the end of the game? The engine actually suggests rook a8 here instead of taking the pawn. That's interesting. Taking the pawn instead of rook a8. You must ask, when you win material, what have I just neglected? What has taking the pawn done or neglected? Why is this all of a sudden? This might actually be technically in black's favour here after taking this pawn. Yes, there is something about taking this pawn, that there is a weakness of the last move, that the rook is no longer holding g2 here. So guess what black plays in this position based on the weakness of the last move. Yeah, chess is a game often of weakness of the last move. g2 has just been neglected. So the engine suggestion was avoiding taking the pawn, right? Rook a8 with an advantage for white. Magnus took the pawn, and his rook has actually been deflected away from the protection of g2. So black to play here. Black is a 1981. Black to play here. And I do wonder about the Simul tests, you know. There are certain players I think would shine in Simuls above their rating, because they would actually be forced to spend a certain amount of time on each move, which they wouldn't in normal tournament conditions. So I think maybe Rudolph is one of those players that can play better than his official rating in a Simul. If he's actually forced every turn, it's just a theory anyway. But black plays a really accurate move here, and it's actually better for black in this position after this next move. And it would be amazing to think if he actually plotted this as a pawn sacrifice. So black to play. What would you play here with black? Okay, any ideas? Okay, it's not knight h1 or not knight takes e4. Now, knight h1, the knight is kind of, although it has created the threat of g2, it hasn't done much else to create some other threats. So sometimes, although we want to create a threat, sometimes we want to maximize the number of threats we open up. And the knight's kind of not doing too much, because white can just play queen d2. And what is the knight actually doing there? It has to just go back. When we're defending that, it just goes back. No, the knight can do better than knight h1 here. And I think someone was knight e2 mentioned. No, we can just take the knight because we're defending g2. That's even worse than knight h1. Knight takes e4 is bad actually, because queen c2 defending, and the knight is now threatened. It's actually opening up a threat for black, sorry, for white. And if say knight g3, then white has the option then of taking off the queens and having a good position with no hassle. But there is one possibility for the knight, and one only, in this position, which opens up this threat and also opens up additional useful threats for black, not for white. And that move is knight f5, so threatening the mate, but also the knight can come into these key squares now with the tempo gain. So rook c2 defending g2, and the knight now goes into e3, and black is in the driving seat here, it seems, technically, with an advantage. Okay, yeah, this is a very dangerous position. Very dangerous position. Because this knight can also come to g5 potentially, and maybe snap off f3, because the knight is also means the protection on the third rank is being weakened. We have rook a2. Now this does seem technically a very good move, actually, knight f7 to g5, but this is also good. Knight takes g2 is played here, winning that pawn. Bishop f2. Sorry, bishop f2 is the engine choice. No, queen e2 was played. And the knight goes back here to e3. Yeah, bishop f2, the engine choice, covers e3, actually. So e3, white could take that off and try and minimize the damage. But Magnus's move here might not be the most optimal defense. Queen e2 allows that knight to come to e3 again. And still, this maneuver to remove a defensive piece is very important here. And after bishop b3, it's used, actually, knight f7. If we can get rid of this knight, then we can crash down to squares like g1. So queen f2, we have queen h5. Here, offering the queen now to rook g2 check, which is tempting, but in fact there might be even stronger here in knight g5. This might be the strongest, because if knight takes, then I think it's very, very dangerous for white. Things like h3 coming. But this is interesting now. Rook g2 check. It's clear. It's clearly winning the queen, and it's also going to be potentially winning f3. Okay, white doesn't want to lose f3 with this. That would just lose that would just lose f3. I believe that's safe enough to take there, and that would be great for black. So king takes g2, holding f3 at least. And we have knight g5, challenging again f3 and this defensive knight. Knight g1, trying to hold on to things, but the h pawn is liberated now. h3 check. Queen g6, threatening to break open this diagonal, with a lot of fun happening after that. But rook h2. And maybe it's good to like just get out of the way of any checks, but actually knight takes f3 was played here, which is also pretty strong, just allowing the check. In fact, it wasn't played here. If it was, then it seems knight h4 is good enough. Knight h4, threatening mate. And if here, then we can break down on this diagonal way. So yeah, Magnus is in big trouble here. He plays knight takes f3, queen takes e4. You know, fantastically aggressive play from black. Well, the knight's defending the bishop, I know. He even let his h pawn go. But here, it's difficult for white to defend this position, believe it or not. We have the move king g1, and now queen e3 check is going to be winning the bishop over here. And here actually Magnus resigned. If we look at this final position, and this is the only game he lost in the whole Simul, by the way, so he did lose one game, and this is it. If king here, queen takes b3 is good, or e4, in fact. This is nasty as well. Say something like this. We can start munching all these pieces. It's collapsing. If Magnus didn't play king g2, then white, it just loses that. Yeah, it's queen and bishop against rook, knight, and bishop. It's in black's favour. This material is in black's favour, but also all these pawns are dropping off. You know, we can munch this pawn as well. That's easy enough, and we've got these passed pawns coming away. It's hopeless. Yeah, so he played a fantastic attacking game, tearing Magnus Carlsen to shreds in the end. But yeah, point of technical scientific note is the weakness of the last move again, which crops up in games. This battery here is probing G2. This winning the pawn here neglects G2. There's a scientific aspect of the game that this move taps into a weakness of the last move. It's a star move of the whole Simul, knight f5, which gave black actually the driving seat in this game. Here, in fact, how could white defend this? If he doesn't move the rook, I think, in fact, we don't even need to take that. That would leave the knight there, just knight f7. Going to g5. This point I haven't really illustrated, but if let's have a look at this point here. If let's say white doesn't do anything, we take this off, and if here we mate on g1, that's the point of getting rid of the defensive knight. Another sort of weakness in the last move. If takes here, if takes on g5, then we get other tactical ideas soon, like h3, getting to g1. So it was a really difficult position. This is all going to be crushing. All this coordination on g2 is impressive as well in this variation. Better to leave the knight on e3, by the way, than to win the exchange. Just to tear down this g2 pawn, and then after that, then we're threatening g1 and other stuff. So yeah, it was a very, very difficult position to defend after this knight e3. Basically, it's basically, you know, technically it's bordering on lost. Yeah, king h1 again. This idea of knight f7 is very powerful to go to g5. So it's bordering on lost after that, winning the pawn on c7, it seems. I did have one other game to potentially show you, but I'm not guaranteeing I can actually remember it. It's not from the Simul, it's from my over the board game from last night. I hope you got something from these 3 games. I could try and reconstruct my over the board game from last night, and if I can't, I'm going to give up. So I'm going to try and reconstruct it now, because I should have brought my score sheet along. I didn't. Let me see if I can reconstruct the game I played. This is away from the Simul, so we finished with the Simul games that I wanted to show you. But I had an interesting game last night. I had French defense. I was just trying to get the moves in first. I didn't. No, it wasn't actually a French defense. I think I'm going to give up already for embarrassing myself. Hang on, it was like this. There's a c3 Sicilian. I'm just trying to put some moves in for a moment. So I'm spoiling the game for you quite significantly. Sorry about this. The heck did I play here? That's interesting. Check. having trouble reconstructing now. I think this is yeah, I'm having trouble reconstructing from here. I think I've lost the plot, so I don't even know it's worth looking at it. Was 95 actually played? Oh God, I don't know. Huh. No, I think this was played. Oh. Okay. Oh dear. No, I need to get the score sheet. Okay, there might be a YouTube video on it. I'll just sport it for you. Let's try and just transpose into. Might go to F3. I might do the trick. Oh man. No. Yeah. No, I can't actually get there. You need the exact move orders. It's difficult to reconstruct games. I can't get there from here. This is a pain to reconstruct games from memory sometimes. Let's just imagine this position for a moment. Oh, actually, the knight going back to E4. It's getting close. It's getting close to the final position. I think I played something like giving up the pawn here. Nope. That's good enough, actually. That's good enough. I think. Yeah. Okay, I played a Sicilian defense. Sorry, I'm going to go over it. Right, it was a C3 Sicilian. Yeah. And I played knight f6 here, which I think is one of the key tests of the C3 Sicilian. I think this is the main move, knight f6. So I played knight f6. It is the most popular move in the live book. So you're borrowing ideas from the other kind of defense. It's the most popular move. You get white to commit to e5, knight d5, d4. Okay, e6. I thought that was a bit controversial last night, but I think it's okay. It's one of the more popular moves. C takes d4 as well. So knight f6, c takes, knight c6. So bishop c4. Yeah, if knight c3, this is less popular than bishop c4. Apparently. Black does okay to play d6 because you're not worried about the temporary double pawns because it would open up the bishop. So we have knight c6, bishop c4. I played d6, yeah, because I wasn't worried about this bishop if it can escape temporary double pawns. I wasn't worried about that. And the funny thing about this game, so this is why I wanted to mention it. I think I was thinking a lot consciously in this game about trade-offs as opposed in conjunction with double-edged swords, which some of you may have on YouTube have seen the double-edged swords video once, which is quite an abstract video. But here I'm thinking of trade-offs. I mean, well, the double pawns, yeah, it's only a temporary trade-off because the bishop's like being liberated. So white castled, and I thought I could weaken e5 here. But this position is actually really a bit of a bind. So here, this looks odd to play bishop d2, and it's been rarely played before. It has been played twice before, but usually white keeps that bind, that protection on e5 with queen e2. That seems to be the most popular move, to play queen e2 here. And there's been a few games here, for example castles apparently, and apparently this is equal, so you can tuck your bishop like this. It's not going to go on this diagonal or anything exotic. It's just trying to hold things tight and pray, it seems, because yeah, pray for white to maybe create some weaknesses at some point. But yeah, queen e2, yeah, that does seem to be quite logical. But bishop d2 seems to have there seems to be an awkward thing about it. Bishop d2, because the queen's no longer putting pressure on d5. It's my castle, and after knight c3, I really didn't want to increase the binds on the position. So if I play knight takes c3, for example, I thought white's got a strong binds here. And in fact, the engine suggests white's doing more than half a pawn advantage in this position. I thought this position was pretty dead. If you look at this position, black looks a bit dead, yeah? That's the question. If I give you 20 seconds to think about this, I wanted to avoid this, and this is where a major trade-off comes in, because I want to avoid this position. Would you agree? Black looks a bit dead in this position. This scared me, that I've played into this kind of highly theoretical c3 Sicilian, which is not really my cup of tea stylistically, and I don't really know as many stem games as I should, and I didn't like the look of this position. And I think in a way this justifies the whole bishop d2, yeah, that the bishop's getting this increasing grip on e5. I think that would be justifying the whole bishop d2. So okay, what would you play in this position? So black to play, and actually it's not mentioned by the engine. I think the engine hates my move. Okay, the engine does hate my move. I think it's not mentioned. So I played, guess what I played? You probably can from the reconstruction. Should I just show it? Okay, I tried to play energetically with f6. I wanted to try and activate these two pieces, but it creates an isolated pawn. So a bit of a trade-off there, because although I've got some piece activity, this pawn is isolated. And it does seem logical to play rook e1, but maybe it's not quite correct, because rook e1 does neglect f2 a bit. And it seems here, immediately, because white's also blocked the queen in, technically knight d4 is possible here, and I wondered about that after. I was concerned about this diagonal, so I moved my king here, but it seems as though knight d4, with the idea that this is awkward, because black is threatening to take, and then take here, hitting the queen. So that would be horrible for white, and if white plays this, then we've got some coordination again on f2. And what does white do here? Again, there's this loose piece issue in this line, so this is with the king on g8. And I wonder if these tactics, they still work here. This tactic still works in this position to exploit this loose piece, because we've got this check and winning this loose piece here. So I get that a little bit later. I played the sort of prophylactic looking. I thought also he was parrying knight e5. I was looking during his turn. I thought, hang on, knight e5 is possible, because I want to get rid of this defensive knight. So he plays rook e1, and I kind of forgot about this knight then. But in fact, knight d4 is possible. I played king h8. Then it was about 20 minutes he was thinking, and I was thinking, hang on, didn't I have knight d4 just then? But I was delighted when on his next move he plays queen c2, which means knight d4 is now with tempo. So just to show this, I mean, if the queen like goes here, then we can just take here, takes, and we've got bishop takes, because the knight's pointing the bishop and we're hitting the queen. So if white's forced to have double pawns, it doesn't look pretty. This doesn't look like a pretty position, right? Black's okay. So anyway, after knight d4, knight takes, bishop takes, rook e2. Yeah, there's a loose piece in this position here, but apparently what I played is inaccurate. I played rook takes f2. Apparently this is actually inaccurate. Here it seems white is not obligated to play this. White can play this, and actually I've got some problems with f8 here. So this looks as though it's tricky, this position. This position here looks as though it's tricky. Maybe it was a little bit unsound, in fact. Now something like this, and I'm losing d5, for example. Yeah, but by playing, so it seems as though bishop takes f2 is more accurate. Bishop takes f2. Alright, but anyway, I played like this, and my opponent did actually take there, so I snagged this pawn with check. So I get my this position where I'm a pawn up, but if you notice it's opposite colored bishops, and it's far from over. Although technically it is a small advantage for white, technically, this position. Sorry, for black, technically. I mean, black's a pawn up. But queen e4. So I had a big concern about the grip on the dark squares here if I did take. You know, if you're a pawn up, you might think, well, you know, get the queens off. But I didn't like the look of this at all, queen takes, knight takes, because white, the knight is threatening, or maybe the rook is threatening stuff, and it looks precarious to me. So I thought better to play this check, and the engine actually likes this check to put the king in the corner, which kind of creates more of a back row liability. So I avoided the exchange of queens, and I had the idea that if rook f1 here, I could parry this with rook f8. I was looking forward to this position where the queens actually hold. That was the whole point as well. But he didn't play that. He played queen e5, and that got me a bit scared. Because there's ideas, for example, like this, maybe one day, or immediately rook f1. It looks dangerous if white can get pieces on the dark squares. Anyway, now what I played does seem okay. I was thinking about this, queen c7, and I think he said he might be playing this, but I'm not sure white has adequate compensation here. It's opposite coloured bishops. It's going to be very hard to win anyway. But okay, I play this, more adventurous, hitting the bishop. And if knight takes d5, then I'll take on d2, and I'm looking forward to an attack on g2. So say something like this. I think I can just play this. I'm looking forward to that sort of thing, but he's not going to do that. He's not going to do that. He plays knight e4, and I had factored that in because it's a nasty move, like attacking the queen, protecting the bishop. So the queens do come off, but I think in a slightly more favourable way now. So I'm tokening the pawn up, but remember, opposite coloured bishops. He goes knight d6, and if I move the bishop to protect this one, then he just snaps that one off. So I played rook f8, offering b7. We have this continuation where he's now hitting the bishop. I take on b2. He takes on d7. I take on. Now you might think bishop c1. Okay, not rook f2 because there's king g1 and I'm losing a piece. But in this position, there's rook e2 threatening a back row mate, and I think black is doing fine here. But he avoided this. He managed to get rid of this potentially bad piece. He just took this off on d7. And this might be not from here not be an accurate reconstruction of the game. I think I played something like knight c3. Okay, let's go to what I've got. So it's a bit airy. My king is a bit airy. I do get this pawn, so I go like a pawn up. This is like transposing. There's an interesting thing that happened from here which I'll just quickly show you before giving up on this game and trying to look at the score sheet tomorrow. Let's just get this position here where he's got these checks, and I've nearly given up on trying to win this game actually. Last night after knight e5, I defend my pawn with knight f6, and he's approaching, though it's not an adjournment or adjudication, he's approaching only 5 minutes on the clock to my what, I've got more than 20. I'm thinking hard, and I'm thinking I can't actually like win this position. I was convinced I couldn't actually win the position. He plays check. Oh, sorry. There's a small detail here. The king is on h2. Let's just put the king on h2 for a moment. Okay, with white to play. I'll triangulate to get that position with white to play. Alright, white to play. So he plays check. Oh, please. Okay, he plays check. Okay, now, okay, this is an instructive moment, and it helped win the match. Okay, and funny enough, it does echo this idea of weakness of the last move. Okay, so white to play here. Now you can have the opportunity to lose a record 2,000 points. White to play here, or you can gain 50 points. So what would you play in this position? If I give you 20 seconds. It's not the right position. Sorry. It's not the right position. Wait. It's this position. Pardon me. Sorry, can we retake that? White to play in this position. The rook's on h1. Rook on h1. I'm never going to do this again without a score sheet. It's really embarrassing. I got to say, it's impossible to reconstruct a game accurately. I mean, I can't do it. I'm just going to have to get the score sheet next time. So white to play here. What would you not play in this position? Do you know why you wouldn't play this next move in this position? So you've been a pawn down for like more than an hour. Now what would you like to play? The black rook is here on a1. This is definitely it. This is definitely the position. It reminds me strongly of the position. So you play rook c6? No? Anything else? Anybody want to say any other move? Yeah? White to play? Yeah? Come on. Just say a move. White to play. Be brave. Yeah? Oh boy. No guesses apart from rook c6. Okay, thanks for mentioning rook c6. Anyone else want to mention anything? Okay. No. All right. all right. Knight takes g6, and yeah. Okay. Maybe you've seen this. Oh crikey! It's black's move. It's black's move technically. Oh my god! It's black's move technically. I can't actually even show you the move because it's black's move. Great. I'm gonna have to distort the position. Anyway, it was this position. Yeah. Knight takes g6. Check. And it will be like mate. So thankfully my pawn got the mating there. That is the last time I try and reconstruct a game from a score sheet. I'm not doing that again. But anyway, I just was keen to show you the game, and I wasn't sure if I should or not, and I shouldn't have, clearly. But I thought I'd show you that and there'll be a better version of this on a separate video. I think I'm going to edit this section out of this stream session. So sorry for wasting your time there. I was kind of excited about this game, I think, and should have got the score sheet for this. It was a lucky win though, completely lucky win, which helped win the match, which was in this cup tournament. So Bonnet got through to the final round, but it was pure luck that he took the pawn and he offered the draw with it. But it does show a weakness of the last move, that G4 is neglected, and I was hoping this pawn could be part of a mating net. I mean, some of the king's escape squares have been taken away, H1 and G3, but I only saw it at the last minute, this idea that it can get this mate here. But yeah, I'm gonna have to do some serious editing on this video. Okay, so see you next week. Thanks, and I hope you got something out of some of these games at least. Okay, thanks very much. Yeah, please remember to like the video if you did like any bits of it, not necessarily the end bit, but any parts earlier maybe. Okay, thanks again, see you next week.